Hey guys, how you doing? Ray here, the gray-haired guy in the gi. Today I have my most requested guest, Jack Cameron.
Wow.
Number one requested guest. Been doing these videos for a while. When's Jack coming on? So we got lots to talk about. Jack, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you being here. Exactly. Remember, karate, do it. Anyway, so yeah, little plug for my friend. Anyway, Jack, there's so much to talk about, and I'm gonna not. We could be here for hours, but we'll go through things. And so first, I like to start off with the plugs. Currently, at this moment, what are you doing? Teaching, training? What are you doing?
You know, well, right now I'm at Halifax BJJ Society.
Yep.
I'm not really teaching. You know, I'm supporting a lot of the athletes and the coaches that are there. But yeah, so I'm at Society for the last year now.
Yep. Awesome.
So yeah, so that's been working out really good. And
you try to go as much. I know you're training all the time.
All the time. I'm probably on the mats 4 to 5 times a week.
That's awesome.
So
still
good. My body yells at me all the time, but I love it. My mind says something different, but yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. So I mean, everyone knows Jack, and he's one of the most. He gives so much to the martial arts community, fighting, promoting, like not fighting, but promoting, sponsoring fighters, and we'll get into that. So, but Jack doesn't talk a lot about his judo background anymore. So we're going to talk about that because as traditional martial artists, BJJ is traditional too, depending on how you look at it. But let's go back to the beginning. Are you allowed to talk about how old you are?
Oh God, yeah. I'll be just 54 now.
Oh,
so
no problem.
It's only numbers at this point. But yeah, judo. If we're going to talk judo, it's been a long, long
it's
time,
important,
right? It's 40 years now.
Wow.
Right? Oh, collectively, I guess over the
yeah,
years.
Of course.
And as I was driving out here tonight, funny enough, is I started off, and you may not know this, in Bedford LeBurn Center.
Okay.
With Austin and John Murray. I don't know if you know those names.
I know the names. I've never met them.
And that's how I started as like a...
Because they're old school judo
Old school judo, back at the gym, and every time I drive by there, it reminds me. Coming up the highway here tonight. I was like, that's where it all started on a Monday night, and I was 10 years old, right?
No way.
Just getting into the program, so
that's
I loved it.
So judo's been there for a long time because obviously other instructors have taught there. VTech taught there. And
Sean
Golden.
Sean Golden, yeah, and all those guys.
Good guy.
So I was lucky enough to be part of that club early on in Bedford days as well. So yeah.
So yeah, and just real quick, I've been having issues with my phone. I think I fixed it. If something happens, we'll stop it and we'll just keep recording. I'll do it in different parts, unfortunately. So what about training in Halifax? Because that's when I first met you. You were like this. I met you so many years ago. Yeah. You were training in Halifax with Bill.
That's right, Halifax Judo Academy. And let me even go back a little bit before that, because I ended up back in Sydney a little bit, back at the Bicentennial Gym. With John Fraser, Sean, there's a few guys back then. God, who else? But
with Brian DeGoss,
all those guys were
Colin Way.
Yeah, all those guys were
training
we
there.
had like 70 people on the mats
back
then doing judo. It was crazy, and that was back in '87.
Yeah,
right?
Judo was big. I mean,
it
was
big sport.
Yeah,
and. Then I moved back to Halifax, and that's when I got back.
Were you up there for school, university?
No, my parents moved around, so I just kind of moved back and forth to Sydney a few times, like back up to Halifax, back to Sydney. So I had traveled everywhere with the club, right?
Yep.
So that's the benefit, and about the martial art, you don't have to try out. So wherever I was doing judo, wherever I lived, I always did judo.
Right.
So that's the kind of cool aspect of judo. It always kept me engaged in the community type of thing. Right?
Yeah, and as we know back then, I mean, there was a lot of judo clubs. There was a lot. There was a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's martial arts always goes up and down, and there's different waves of popularity, if that's how you pronounce it. And anyway, but judo definitely was big in the, the 60s, 70s, 80s, a little bit in the 90s, and obviously, kind of faded a little bit, but we love judo. It's awesome.
It's still part of the game. It's in the blood. It's I think it's certainly a high level sport, Olympic, and Numa. Jason Scott runs a great club out there, big following, and a lot of high level kids now. Like I found the level now with the kids is so much better than it's ever been.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Do you think that's got to do with the new ways of training, new fitness stuff? I mean,
yeah,
you know.
I watch those guys and they train, they do conditioning training, they do open mat training, like, and there's a lot of Atlantic seminars now. Like there are a lot of training together. Then before they used to kind of train in their own clubs, but now they're getting together as an Atlantic group, and I've seen so much high level judo now, and it's just so amazing to kind of see what's you know, the group that are still training, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, a lot of people now don't realize, especially if you're training it with sort of like a full-time school, let's say Jason's school from Numa, that in the old days, we just talked about it, you'd train twice a week. You'd show up, maybe at King's College. You'd lug the mats down, put them on the floor, train for whatever, 2 hours, lug the mats back, and go home. And you're like, okay, I can't wait till 3 days from now when I do it again.
Yeah, and, it's just it's a different way. Like, unlike now, our environments, you can go every day, right? You can train, many clubs train every single day.
True.
But not now. Like, back then, we were like, you had to be on there on Monday. If you missed Monday, well, geez, you're only going to train once a week. Right?
Exactly.
Right? And that's, you know.
But I think we were just talking, it kind of fostered something in you that made, everyone's dedicated. I don't even want to come across saying this the wrong way, but you're almost more dedicated because you knew that night you had to be at judo. Yeah. You know, and it was so important to you. Now you can just go whenever. Yeah. So the newer martial artists, again, I'm not trying to be negative, but they're just like, oh, I'll go when I want. Yeah. You know, but before, if you didn't go, you weren't learning.
Well, that's just it. Like, you had to be on the mats, and everybody was, you know, you were actually with that particular group those particular nights. So it kind of, until the tournament came along. So, you know, it is different now, though, for sure. Right?
Sure.
In the arts that we're doing.
So we're going to get to the BJJ stuff in a second, but we're still on judo. And you were training with Bill Anderson, of course.
Bill Anderson, but, you know, even on my... Yeah, Bill Anderson, but I was out in Shearwater too. And,
okay.
Right? For many years, after I kind of wanted to get a bit more competitive, my parents put me in there. I was 2 or 3 years in Bedford, and then I was out in Shearwater for a good 5
Who's
to 7
the instructors out there?
Ken Whitney. Right? Everybody
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
The man, the awesome Canadian judo legend, and from Nova Scotia, lots of tremendous Hall of Fame as far as judo, and and it's like, you know, but he passed away quite a few years ago, sadly. But he looked like Big Santa Claus
all the time, and all of his like his daughter was in it, and his son, and he an incredible man. I sit here and tell you stories that over the years, him and Bill Anderson together, but. You know, I got a lot from that club. That was a military-based club. Okay. And those guys looked after me as a young student, and my mother would drop me off, and those guys just took care of me.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And I had some great coaches, and people always ask me, how did I become a good coach? Because I had good coaches. Exactly. And that was a big part of being at Shearwater.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, fast forward. I know you're a black belt, but what rank are you in judo? It's okay to talk about it. Yeah, we're not shy here.
4th Dan.
Perfect.
Judo. So had a great career of judo, and
you were president of Judo Nova Scotia for a time.
I was. Yeah.
Did you serve any other?
I had lots of aspects in judo. I served as the sport leader for Canada Games. Okay. In many different roles. I was. Sport manager as well for Canada Games over the last 91 games, 97, and so on. Right. So I was always involved with Canada Games and at that level. So I had some great coaching components as well for level 3. So I got as far quite high in that part. So I took all of that and I brought it back to the sport of judo over the years for sure.
And you've competed a lot in judo. I remember being in early judo tournaments and seeing you there.
Yeah, our paths have crossed back in the early days.
For sure. Especially when they had them in Glasgow and all those places. Anyway, so I've known Jack for a long time through judo, and then of course he joined Kinbai Bushido Kai. Yes, I did. That's
funny enough. I think it was like 2010. I was training. This is how I got into jiu-jitsu. I got into jiu-jitsu because judo kind of stops or slows down in June, and I was training for World Masters in judo.
Okay.
So I started at your club,
Right.
training on the weekends with Jamie Slomwhite.
Oh yeah, Jamie.
Right?
Shout out to him.
Right?
Yeah.
He's the one that got me into this.
Yeah.
So fast forward, probably the longest blue belt I've known in the sport. So he's the one, and then we started training at your club.
Yeah.
And so that's how, and so I can continue my training for World Masters. And
Right.
the first day in World Masters was a Niawaza tournament, and I got bronze. Right?
Right on.
I did okay on the stand up. Tashi was on the next day, and then from then on, I just stayed with it. So 2010,
Yeah.
fast forward to today, right up.
That's
to,
awesome.
right?
Yeah. And again, I wasn't doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back then. I had other people teaching at the club.
Yeah.
Steve and Courtney.
That's
And
right.
there was a whole bunch of people there. Nathan Stevers, of
That's
course,
right, yeah.
who we give credit to. But
Yeah.
it was thanks to Jamie. I think he introduced us to Edgar. Or you did.
Well,
it was either Jamie or maybe both at the same time.
Kind of at the same time.
Because Rodrigo was down.
That's right. We brought him all over Atlantic Canada.
Yeah.
I didn't know much no gi at that point, and,
Right.
But we did bring him around to all over the place, even up in New Brunswick. And then I think we ran into Edgeguard at that point, and you guys kind of made him.
Yeah, I approached him and
Yeah.
just said, "Hey, we'd like to join your family, become part of the MXT." Well, it was Sia Palista at the time again, but yeah, it was Sia Palista Halifax. I remember this stuff.
Jeez, yeah.
But anyway, then they left that association, and Max, I can never pronounce his last name properly.
Trombini? Yeah.
No offense, but Max, the great Max, formed MXT. Anyway, and we had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then you were there. And you were teaching some judo at Kushido Kai for
you guys,
a
like
bit.
Jamie kind of did something else, and Jamie went on. So I continued the program under Nick and Jesse and Mike.
Yeah, all good guys.
Not Mike, Courtney and Jesse. So Steve and all those guys. I mean, that's where it all the evolution, how I stayed into it, and
Right.
those guys. It was a really weird start for me, kind of figuring it all out again, starting up as a white belt. But you know what? Here
But everyone was lower belts at the time.
Yeah.
So I mean,
didn't
nowadays, as we know, there's 97 black belts
Yeah.
in Nova Scotia. There's tons, obviously, of brown belts, purple belts, and blue belts galore. But back then, there wasn't as many. I mean, there was few, but
It was hard to find a colored belt.
that's true.
Right?
Yes, it
Right.
was.
And,
and obviously,
yeah.
Fit Plus and Titans were the two of the biggest clubs at the time
Yeah.
in HRM,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Abai was around, they grew up and stuff, but at that time, really, it was Titans and Fit
Well,
Plus.
and how many clubs are you got track of now? 37 clubs or 39 clubs now in BJJ?
I just wrote it yesterday. Yeah, 37 clubs now in Nova Scotia.
Isn't that something?
Some are full time, but a lot of them are just kind of a couple times a week too. So, but anyway, it's growing up. And so anyway, so much training we did there, and now you traveled a lot with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now, because people are like, isn't it supposed to be about BJJ and not Judo? But all are important.
Yeah, I think they're together. Personally,
100%.
One doesn't come from the other. They're both the same. There's definitely lineages to it all. But have I traveled for sure? The World Masters Championship, 3 or 4 years, I went down to Vegas and competed in that. Just to win a fight is absolutely a challenge, but just to go and prep yourself for that was a massive challenge for me. I did come back 1 year with the bronze medal, so
that's awesome.
Back in 2017.
So just for people who don't know, like here, if we go to tournament like Submission Art Atlantic, there might be what's the most, like 200 people, maybe?
Yeah, 200 or 300.
Yeah. So, but if you go down the World Masters, for anyone who's never been there, and I know there's probably a lot of people on here that have, but I have not. I've only bang! You walk into that gymnasium.
Oh, you're looking at 4,000 people.
Wow,
right?
4,000
from, I think it's like 35 age and upwards, right?
Okay.
So Hal McDonald, who you might remember.
Yeah, you know
right?
Hal.
He still competed still competes, I think, down there. And it could be anywhere up to mid-60s, late 70s. People still competing with your belt, age, and weight. It is and the energy and the level of competition is
it's the best in the world.
It's the best, right? They come to win every time. So do I, for that matter.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. But you get to see so many, and I don't know, we could talk about that for a whole video, but how do they organize that? You've obviously organized judo tournaments and other tournaments, but And that's over a couple days, right?
Yeah, I can't remember how many. Like we just came back there in August this year. Mark and Ahmed and Brian Studley went down this year.
Yeah.
We had some great matches. No medals, but we had some great time together. I think there was 52 mats.
Wow.
52 mats going on at the same time for like 4 days straight. Right?
Jeez,
Yeah.
that'd be so overwhelming for somebody,
It would be,
especially if you're new to competing.
Yeah, but if you're there with a group, like if you have your core group of people, like, we're there to support each other, and that's what we did. We were the four of us got together, and we were, we all fought on different days, and we just stuck together, and we weren't there to party. We were there to kind of, everybody was
no
there.
Casinos?
No.
Lose money anyway.
No, we were there to cheer everybody on and learn what we could,
Right.
And now we're even so excited to go back next year, and there's people that want to come with us next year in 2025, so we can't wait.
That's awesome. That's good. So you've done, obviously you've done a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's your kind of main focus now, training it all the time, and you were up at Shidokai forever, and then you closed down, and then you were with Maritime for a while, and you're at Halifax BJJ, but you also travel around.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. Obviously, I'm not committed to any classes, so I do get around the province, and I say the province because I do, literally I get out to your club here, Manimal, but I've been over at Chris Sutherland's club, Dartmouth.
Yeah.
I go see Presley's club on a couple times. TJ Grant's
awesome.
Quite often. And so I do get around, and I do miss the guys at Maritime. That their guys are training.
Oh yeah, those guys are always training hardcore. Those guys, they never stop.
They put out some tough fighters as well. They're mostly no-gi and wrestling now, but which is great. I wouldn't take that away. It's just my interest has been in the gi.
Sure, absolutely.
So
those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And how do you find going to different gyms? Obviously, we know every gym's accepting. But have you been to a gym anywhere in your travels where they look at you and be like, maybe if it's not here, you don't want to say their name, but if they're like, hey, we got a new guy, let's get him, Shark Tank that guy.
Yeah,
like
not
in your
so
travels.
Much. I don't train. I'm going to say no to that. Not really. Like everybody's respectful. I think obviously the gray here may give it away a little bit.
Yeah, man.
So if not, you're kind of like, you're really protective of your body and I always watch who I'm going with anyway. Because
of course.
Right. If they are a little bit more anxious of trying to get to you, like I'm really trying to hold them off. Like you really have to know your jiu-jitsu at that point, right? Okay. So it's about controlling them as about them controlling you. So I'm really cautious about that. I still do get out to all the clubs, and obviously these black belts do make you a target sometimes.
Okay.
So
I'm sure all black belts feel that way, right? I'm sure they talk about it like, oh man, these guys are going to try to. And that's part of it. Yeah. You have to accept that. Yeah. Unless you're, in your 80s and you're just like, just chill. We accept that. But any younger person just going to see that and be like, woo.
No, I'm cautious of that. Obviously. Who to go with and stuff like that, and just watch. You got to know your opponents, right? So just to be aware.
Seminars. Do you like seminars? Have you gone in any seminars?
Yeah,
I know at Bushido-kai we had so many people come in and teach over the years. Yeah. But
it's funny. We're paying for that and trying to remember some of the moves half the time. We just had Ed Spin in, and it's great. John Thomas and those guys.
Well, Halifax BJJ has hosted a lot of seminars.
Yeah,
they have a lot of great people, and so other clubs as well. There's no question. But
I've gone to TJ Grant's a few times, and he's had a number of players in. Yeah. One club that I missed probably say that I visited. Jake McKenzie's been over there.
Yeah.
Not so much, but I have visited those clubs, so I did have the luxury to get around. To all these clubs. To your point earlier, because I sponsor a lot of these athletes.
That's my next question I was going to talk about. But before we go there, I was just going to say it's great to go to seminars because I find, sometimes you learn things. Yeah. You meet other people. But what I always try to tell people, because I love seminars too, if you go there and the instructor of whatever, he's obviously a higher caliber instructor, right? Mm-hmm. If they're teaching concepts or ideas that you know or are familiar with, that shows you that you're learning well. Yeah. Like, hey, that guy just showed this armbar. I've done it before, but maybe it's slightly different. But at least I know I'm on the right track.
Yeah. So if you can walk away with one to two things, like not overcomplicate it.
No.
And then practice it. You know, chances are you know, you're going to add something to your toolbox, right? Or, you know, just to kind of make it work. And, you know, you never stop learning.
No.
Every day. Like, you know, I'm 4 to 5 times a week. I'm learning every week.
Yep.
Trying to remember it all is half the problem, right? So
the other thing with seminars is sometimes you can watch the instructor. This is what I like to do when I go to seminars, and how they present their material, and you take from that to improve your own teaching style.
That's right.
That's,
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, that's a big thing
right.
with me. I just love, and then some instructors you're like, man, this guy can't teach, but he's great.
Yeah.
But some instructors are like, man, I like how he presented that material, so you use it.
Yeah. No, it's different styles and how people kind of learn from everybody and all that stuff. You're absolutely right, and how they teach it to that finer detail, and so that, you know, maybe they don't talk as long, but maybe they show different ways of doing it as well, right? So in Halifax, all of Nova Scotia, we have BJJ events, kickboxing events, MMA events, submission grappling events, and for some reason, your name is always in there. Especially, you know, whether it's Fight League Atlantic or submission, wherever. You, like, what's going on there? Where's all the money come from, man? Wow, yeah, no.
Works for a Colombian drug cartel.
Something,
no.
eh? No, I know.
I'm just saying, I know you're even when I ran Bushido Kai, a lot of our guys competed in, like, local MMA, or maybe they went to the, like, other guys, like Dave Reynolds, he'd go to Brazil for a competition or Masters, and you always, no matter what it was, you tried to help people out.
I do step up, and, you know,
like,
it's about giving
back.
No
word of a lie.
Yeah, and I still today, I think this year was probably my biggest sponsorships of many different events.
Okay.
Now, I couldn't even sit here and tell you them all. I sponsor sometimes the event, and sometimes I sponsor the athletes and the coaches.
Right.
And
is that based on your work? Like,
yeah.
where you can talk about what
my mortgage
you're not
work.
A full-time martial arts instructor making millions, right?
No. It's just that, you know, I'm self-employed, obviously. Many people know it with the Way Home under the mortgage group.
Yep.
And, you know, it is coming out of my own pocket, and but it allows me to the way to advertise my business. And actually, I got to say, the community Atlantic-wide, and if you're going to be watching this, has supported me in the mortgage business.
Right.
There's not many people that are jiu-jitsu players that are mortgage brokers. So I have to say a big shout out to all the community that support me in this business, because they come to me for the mortgage business or refer me and always ask questions. So for that, I am very thankful, and I give back to the community for that.
Right.
So
that is awesome. And because a lot of people you've supported, they created these big events. They've got to travel. You know, like I said, go to even MMA guys, even our local MMA guys, you'd be like, yeah, Ray, we'll help you out there and all that stuff.
A little bit here and there. You know, Chris Cleedy's there not too long ago. We helped him out. A couple little tournaments all over Atlantic Canada. You know, it's you know, it's not just Halifax. Like I said, it's, you know, the guys in PEI, some of the MMA guys there, I've helped out, and just some of the events that just trying to. Some of the guys that even went to a ADCC tournament, I helped those guys out. You know what? They were so thankful.
Of course,
right?
It's awesome.
So it's amazing to see them come back and be so thankful that I was able to help them out. And, you know, it's not just me. We've got a couple other corporate sponsors as well. So we'll do our best. You know, it can't be the same every year, but this year I was able to give a bit more back. So that's where we're at.
That's awesome. That's so important. It's wicked. How do you find training BJJ now, like currently within, say, the last year, compared to when you were, say, many years ago or a little bit younger? Like, do you find now you're broken more, or do you have to, you know, like, is there a difference? Or if you're like, no, man, I just go full tilt right away.
No, there is a pause button. My wife would sit here and say, she said, I think you're finally getting it. Some days I need an extra 2 to 3 days. I used to say, like, you know, maybe I needed a day, but now I might need 2 or 3 extra days for a repair or healing on my body.
Right.
You know, if I'm not obviously well, then I'm better off staying home. So I've learned to listen to my body for the first time in my life this past year.
Yep.
Otherwise, I would just go all the time, but that would actually impact the injury even longer.
Right.
But this year, I finally listened to myself.
Have you had some injuries, serious injuries, like whether it was in judo or BJJ?
Just more joints.
BJJ, sort of. Sound like Master Ken, if you know who he is.
Yeah, no, I would say it's more just, soreness is always going to be there. Let's face it.
Right.
But it's about the joints and, nothing too serious, but it's just really about listening to your body a little bit more.
Okay.
And again, as I talked about, picking your partner when you're training and letting them know if we're not getting any younger.
Well, yeah.
And I want to come back the next day. As I said, I want to be on the mats. It's part of my lifestyle, and I just want to be there the next day, and I want to be there for those guys. And in order to do that, I want to make sure that this body is protected.
Right.
Right. So.
That's good. That brings me to my next question, because this kind of, in a weird way, affected me too. It's kind of a martial art thing. And in any art that involves throwing, and there's so many different arts that has throws, judo, wrestling, there's so many, Indonesian martial arts that involve throwing. After a while, it becomes hard on the body, right? Even Japanese jiu-jitsu, we have a lot of throws, but you're like, oh, maybe we won't do any throws tonight. But it's hard on the body.
Yes.
But you can still let each other down easy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you've obviously found, because this is going to relate to what I'm going to talk about in a second, that just doing niwaza or groundwork has been better for you.
100%. Right. And the transition in.
And it's no negativity.
No.
It's just at some point you're like, okay, I'm not going to have a 19-year-old throw me 5 times with the tomonagi.
You got to adapt, right?
Right.
Our minds and body are going to be battling each other all the time.
Right.
So you got to adapt to, obviously I miss judo. Judo's been, the lifeline, how I all started. But jiu-jitsu is the new lifeline. But they all kind of mix and mingle. Now, do I do stand-up? Absolutely. But it's modified, and then it's, again, still controlled. It's not like the big power throws and the guys landing on you anymore. Like,
right.
I do miss it, but there's other things you can do with the foot sweeps, right? And then there's other technical pieces that you can do now within the judo that may not be that large impact on the body.
Yeah, because in Japanese jiu-jitsu, I don't like taking falls anymore at all, really. But what's really affected me, because I did kickboxing like my whole life, basically, since the 80s, and I'm always like, sparring's the best, and the more I've been doing grappling and BJJ and stuff, I can't spar, my knees, both arthritis in both knees now, and I'm lucky if I can get my foot, I could kick, used to be able to kick like a door sill when I was younger, now I can barely get my leg up to waist level. But I've always been against people who say, man, do BJJ, it's so much easier on the body, you don't have to punch and kick each other. And I'd be like, screw that, I'm always going to be punching and kicking. But guess what? Yeah. I can't do it now. I'm like, no, I don't want to admit that I got to go. I can still kickbox, and I know kickboxers that are in their 70s and 80s still punching and kicking a little bit, but just hitting pads. Anyway, basically, I find it much easier to grapple now than kickboxing.
Well,
I
still
can't believe
fitness.
I'm going to admit that.
Well, as we started off about our age, we got to, we're pretty lucky to be training at our age and to be in the shape that we are. And now we're sharing all this knowledge to all these people. There's not many people that can train like we are on the mats these days. In Nova Scotia, really.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at even Elio Gracie was in his 80s and he was still rolling on the mat, right? So I think it's a matter of, like you said, picking the right partners. Mm-hmm. Going nice and easy, flow rolling, and if you feel good, you pick. Okay, listen, I feel good today. I really want to try to go as hard as I can. Yeah. Okay, no problem. But if something happens, the guy will stop or she will stop, and you won't get injured. Yeah. So
injury management is what I call it.
Okay, that's important.
That's if you're taking anything today away, injury management is one of the things that keeps me going. And I guess not just because of my age, but for anybody that's on the mats, and if you're word of advice is. You have to protect your body if you want to do this for as long as us, for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Just a couple more quick questions. Yeah. Why should people do judo and BJJ?
Oh, you need a stand-up game. You got to get to the ground, and you got to figure out a way to get there, whether it's Japanese jiu-jitsu or judo or wrestling
or sambo.
You got to figure it out. It doesn't start on the ground, so you got to figure that out. Now, there are several techniques in all of the martial arts that can get you there. So I'm a huge component of that. You got to get there. Every tournament that's there all starts on the ground.
Yeah.
Or sorry, on the stand-up.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Just paying attention to see if you're listening.
That's right. Yeah. There's one thing in the street that's really good, especially if you're a judoka. It's called cement poisoning.
Yeah.
Bang! The person's out. You're done. You walk away. Anyway, no, I think when anyone goes to local tournaments or any tournaments, you always see people. Some people are really good with takedowns, but you also see a lot of, say, blue belts and whatever, some purple belt that struggle for a while with the stand-up. And it's no offense to anybody, but hey, we're just
it's gotta be
being honest, right?
Yeah, it's got to be part of the game for sure. I think, at least it should be part of your toolbox again, having that some sort
even
of...
a couple good throws that you
like.
That can set up maybe what you want to do after that.
Well, there's enough judo. Well, Scott Tanner's still around, Jason Scott, any of those guys would be more than happy.
Mike Lavoie,
all those guys, right? They got some big judo clubs around. So,
right, cool. What are some people you look up to in martial arts? Can be anybody. Can be like, I don't care, Chuck Norris. I don't know. It could be anybody that you know in past or that you know from watching, whatever. Or maybe you're not into that stuff.
No. I will come back, and you heard me say a few minutes ago about those military coaches that I had, all high-level judo guys. God, I can't. The list is endless. But they were all high-level, good judo guys that looked after me and made a difference in my life, and I was able to capture that. And it wasn't too long ago that I realized that that's what made the difference in those guys. I can't sit here and single one person out. I mean, obviously the icon is certainly. Two people that come to mind would be Ken Whitney and Billy Anderson. Had a big part of my life in the judo world, for sure.
And those guys would have been raised in as we've referred to as the blood and guts era of judo, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot different back then than it is now. Yeah. I think they had less rules.
Oh my heavens! Those were the good old days of judo for sure, where you can grab the legs and many more, a lot more sacrifice techniques, but. The new judo is cool, but I came from the old school where you could still grab the legs.
Right. Now they changed that recently, didn't they?
Well,
or is that just in Japan?
Just for one tournament, and I think it's going to come back. I think it's going to come back.
It has to make things, because we won't get into that, but we've talked about it. How can you make certain arts more popular or more open to everybody? Sometimes you have to change things a little bit, right?
Well, and I think the change is that they're seeing that there is an opportunity for that to come back, and spending actually more time on the ground to execute the techniques back in judo. Right. So instead of giving them 10 seconds, maybe now they're allowed 30 to 40 seconds to execute the techniques, which is well overdue, by the way. So,
yeah. Well, that's true. It's true. Congratulations, by the way. I'm not sure how the ranks go for black belts in BJJ. I always get confused. So normally you get your Shodan or your black belt first. And then you go first degree, second degree.
Yeah, so after every 3 years, so for the next 3 stripes, I guess, if you will, is that you have to wait every 3 years. So
good. Jack just got his first one.
And then it's 5 years. So I'll be definitely more gray and broken up by then, but happy to get it.
Of course,
big shout out
time
to
put in.
Your club back then, Bushudokai, and the boys at Maritime and
MXT,
bringing
Carlos,
me through that.
Joel, all those guys.
Joel and Josh have taken me under their wing now, and still we're in Carlos. Like it's just a little bit different, but it's been working great. Now we got a new family there now, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's so many great clubs, and obviously you've traveled around a lot of them. Me too, and everyone's so far. BJJ has just grown. I think now there's more BJJ clubs than, how did I word this when I wrote it? More BJJ clubs than other martial arts styles. Like at one time there might have been 70 Taekwondo schools in Nova Scotia. Now there's not as many. Now I could be wrong. Yeah. Someone can correct me, but I keep track of all the schools and all the black belts.
Well, incredible growth. Obviously we just came out for the team day on Saturday. And it was like 200 people there. It was wall to wall, and like all the affiliation clubs. Like I think there's 10 affiliation clubs that were there, and lots of gradings. And if you saw the pictures,
yeah.
They had to stitch those pictures together. There were so many people. It was an incredible day. Lots of great promotions, a lot of great people, and just happy to be part of that. So for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything we missed that you want to add? You were thinking about? We talked about judo. We talked about BJJ. We did a little bit of history stuff. You know, we don't talk about politics on here. We could get into that, but nope. And are you in any movies? Do you like martial art movies? Or?
It's funny you say that.
All right, let me hear it. I'm gonna test you.
Trudeau, the early years, and this
who?
Trudeau. Wait, young Trudeau. This is a true story.
Okay.
Yeah. So I taught. He was the main actor in.
Pierre
Junior when he first.
Oh
started.
yes, okay.
And I taught him judo.
Oh
yeah,
that's awesome.
I'll send you the video, and it was like I had like a 20-second clip, and we were all doing judo throws down. I can't even remember the basement in one school downtown Halifax. And
Justin Trudeau, you're talking about.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Wait, no, Pierre.
No, Pierre. Oh yeah, that's right.
He gets his brown belt in the scene.
Yes.
And
okay.
I trained him for the 3 days. Anyway, it was pretty cool.
There's a famous picture of him getting like an honorary black belt or something from a Japanese fella.
Yeah. Well, and the scene that I had was when he was getting his brown belt.
Okay.
And anyway, I'll pick on Scott Tanner because he didn't get selected for the movie because of his ears. But I got the movie set, and since then I've been in the acting field now since 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've done some other fun movies too on the backside.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's good. So. Good. Were you trained when Doug Rogers was here?
I did.
Yeah, I went to that.
Yeah, incredible. Incredible.
Everyone on here has to look up Doug Rogers on YouTube.
Yeah.
Him training back in Japan with Kimura.
Yes.
And it's black and white. It was a Canadian National Film Board.
It was a great documentary on that.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, check it out.
If you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stylist or any martial artist, you have to look it up. Doug Rogers in Japan. The whole thing's on there. It's maybe about a half an hour. And he's from Nova Scotia originally.
Yeah. And he won, I forget what Olympic medal at that point.
Yeah. And we're talking back in the 60s that he trained. But
64.
he taught here in Halifax and we went to
you were in a few pictures together.
It was awesome. So
first medal in judo, 64 Olympics, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't ask me.
So, anyway, guys, that's it for now. This is our last interview of 2024. And other than that, 2025, I'm going to try to do some more interviews. And, we have a big event. That event we're going to try to do is in February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Looking forward to
BJJ, Tai Chi, 4 different black belt instructors. Be here at Manimal Athletics. I'll talk to you more about it later.
Love it.
Anyway, but Jack, as always, man, I appreciate your time. And as always, I'm just going to reach and hit the button and we're done.
Perfect.
And that was almost 40 minutes.